Hey, what's up? We should be live. Hope you're all doing well. I just wanted to prepare something, so for sorry for the what was it, like 30 seconds delay. Let me bring up a file for later. Now where did I save it? There we go. Okay, I'll need that for later. Thank you so much. So today we're gonna talk about results. Be interesting. I can let me mute my screen. Close the door, and today we're going to discuss results. Results, it's an interesting topic. Getting the results you want, getting the results you don't want. There's a lot of frustration there. um, it's a very heavy topic in a way. A lot of people are uncertain as to why they are unhappy with their work, how or what to do in order to be happy with their work. And we're going to start breaking it down just a bit. Won't go super deep into everything, but we'll do our best. So thank you so much for being here, Christina. Hopefully you're still here. Not 6 a.m. I don't know. I'm not sure what, based on what time zone. It's probably 6 a.m. somewhere, but I'm not sure where. That's me. Hey, Plumpy, how are you doing? Hey, the anchor, holding me accountable for the time. Hey, Etty, how are you doing? Thank you for being here. And Joshua. So yeah, actually, it's interesting. The entire, we're gonna let some people in, but the entire idea for this live stream was this one I showed you in the last video, as well as the result from the actual painting process from the last video. So you've probably seen both of these. There are some differences between these two paintings that are very interesting. You wouldn't necessarily think about, but I'm aware of them. And I think it's a great topic for discussion because it does relate to getting the results you want. Hey, Lydia, how are you? Hey, Tembo, how are you doing? Hope everything is well. RK Feb Art, hey, how are you doing? DS, hope you're doing well from France. John, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for the kind words and thank you for the birthday gift. Much appreciated. So yeah, let me know, by the way. So I'm curious to hear in the chat if you feel like you're usually, let's say usually you don't get the result you want with watercolor. If you can, drop a Y, like a yes or a Y or a yes, let me know. And if you feel like you do get the results you want, usually type a no. I'm curious to see how many people have this thing. Um, I think it's a very human thing to not like whatever you produce, and it's a very human thing to like everything you produce. So it's both. I think it depends on the type of personality you are and all of that. Okay, good. So Ellen, I see you're happy with your art. That's great. Chris Yellow from Ghana, the anchor. It's iArt Live, right? Not sure what you mean, but it is live. Escorbet, hey, hope you're doing well. From Maine, cool. Helen from England, good. So people are happy. Okay, so we can stop the live stream. Thank you so much for being here. We'll wrap it up. No, I'm kidding. Tempo says 50-50. Thank you, John. Thank you. Yeah, I'll look after the fact. 50-50. Okay. Yeah, I struggle because I feel like I get in the zone and then I get careless. You know what? That's funny. To me, it's I can get how that happens. The paintings where you're completely absorbed into them, but then you get careless and you make mistakes. Um, I think we can break that down too, because there could be some other factors involved. It could be that you're uh, making something very freely and then you're out of the zone because you judge it, right? You snap yourself out. Or it could be that you were in the zone and that's great, and then it's more about honing that instinct of continuing being in the zone. There's a lot that goes into that. We can talk about that a bit later. I like what I make, but it's not necessarily what I intend to make. Okay. Yeah, it's art life. Yes. User account. That's the most original username ever. Meant yes to that one. I don't get a result. Oh, okay, I see. Marjan, need help, get scared and anxious about making mistakes. Yes. So it's very interesting. So I'll show you. I'll show you now. I will show you. Here it is. So I have two paintings here. Hopefully my eyes are at least visible. So on the left, you see the painting that I shared is like a really good example of something that happens when I'm fully in the zone. And on the right, you see the painting I produced in the last video. Now, I like both of them, but to me, there's some difference between the two, actually quite significant. Now, let me see. So I want to edit this for a second. I want to make it so that I'm more visible. Now let's move this down. Sorry, I just want to crop it a bit. The thing about these, should have done this in OBS. I'm using the stream yards. Yeah, sorry, give me a second. Okay, I think that should work. Export, save for web. So here's the thing, right? These two paintings were done, the time difference between them was maybe 1 day. And it's interesting to think about how, and let me bring them up properly on the screen. So it's interesting to think about how the one on the left is one of those rare occasions where I feel like I got everything just like I wanted it. That's super rare. Now I'll show you up close, especially in this entire part with the carrot. That's something that, it doesn't happen often. Now it's both the values and the flow and everything else, but it's also the colors. Now, it's very rare that things fall into place like that. Now, the one on the right is more of a typical painting I would get when I'm putting a lot of hard work into it or a lot of focus. I'm very focused and I like the result a lot. But something about the one on the left is very special. And it's hard to define. But I do want to explore this direction because the painting on the left, what mainly characterizes it was how immersed I was in the process. I'm actually going to send an email later today to everyone who's subscribed to the email lists in any shape or form. The one on the left, I'm looking at it here up close. It really isn't. It's not even complete. Like I'm still missing some shadows, and there's another layer going on. But for some odd reason, I was able to just get everything in the right spot. Now, these were painted again 1 day apart. So what we learned from that is that it's not a difference in skill or technique. I didn't really learn anything that time. What it is, quite possibly, is where I was mentally or emotionally while painting. And this is very interesting because it's something that is technically could be in our control. This is why it interests me so much, because I keep seeing the variation in results in my own paintings, and it's not so obvious what to attribute it to. And it's not really even necessarily about executing the technique better, because I know the technique. You know the technique. If you've done it a few times, you know the technique. It's more about being able to use what you know as cleanly and as effectively as possible in a way. So let's look at some chats here and I'll see what you're saying and then we'll continue. If you want to share more, feel free to let me know in a comment more the specifics of what you're struggling with or the type of results you're trying to get but for some reason elude you. Let's see where I was. Yeah. What I struggle with is I get scared of making mistakes and then never finish my paintings due to it. Yeah, so that's a complete hitting the brake, right? Not even continuing and finishing the painting, right? It's not even just getting a bad result. Do you often find that you make a mistake and then you stop, then you pause your painting? Curious to hear that. I think my zone work would be more effective if my skill level was higher. I'm still, yeah. So there is something to be said about if you're truly new and if you cannot do it at all, then that's fine. So for example, if you take a piece of paper and you try to do an even wash and you can't do that, just an even wash of any kind, get it even as much as you can, then that's something you should probably do a few more times until you're able to do it. But I would say that in the context of if you're able to do it once in an isolated manner, you can probably do it as a part of a painting. what happens is usually something stops you from, that's to me at least, something stops you from accessing the ability to do it, but it's there, the ability itself. Sugar is sweet. That's a fact. Thank you for being here. Christina, hi Liron. I do not get results when I go too light. I followed both your recent paintings on veggies and could not get vibrant colors. Yeah, so my question would be, so this is a great use case. If you grab a piece of paper, and all I'm telling you is to do a couple of swatches, can you just take a piece of paper and do a couple of swatches with strong, vibrant colors? Can you do that? If you can mix a vibrant color and then put it on paper, if it's just a piece of paper and you're just doing swatches, you can do that. Now, the question becomes maybe why, while painting, you're just not doing it? Because there's a reason that, so when you're just doing the swatches on paper, all you care about is, I'm going to do these swatches, these colorful swatches. When you're doing a painting, there's a whole lot of baggage there. The normal, I guess, baggage would be like, how do I get this painting to work? But then also there's the baggage of, I'm worried to mess up things in the painting. So I think a good experiment to try is, can you do this on just a blank piece of paper? That's the thing. If you can do that, nothing really is stopping you from doing it in the context of a full painting. So if you look at something like these two, right? So if you look at something like these two, when you look at this and you have this thought, how can I paint this without messing up or whatever? You're not using your full faculties, which you could afford to use when you just painted on a blank piece of paper. So that becomes more of a question of, again, what stands in the way when it's a finished painting. And let's say you draw the same thing 10 times on 10 different pieces of paper. Can you get yourself to paint as if you were just doing swatches, as if you're just doing this for fun, for the joy of using vibrant colors? Because there's a lot of joy to me in that. So I'm sure you can relate to that, especially if you're trying to do that, Christine, hello from Minnesota. User account. Yeah, I often end up making mistakes and then I give up on the painting. Yeah, this could be also a gap in technique. So very basic. Maybe you're. It could also be. So one thing I'm seeing all the time is trying to paint things that are either very complex or uninspiring to you personally. And if you're painting something that's uninspiring to you personally, there's no real motivation behind it. There's no real inspiration, I find. It's just painting for the sake of getting a result or improving the skills, which honestly is not a motivation. I think improving skills is not really a motivation. A motivation would be to paint something grand. Maybe for some people it is motivation. I think for most it isn't. I don't want to speak for everyone. I struggle mostly with perspective and shadows, I think. Yeah, so that sounds like more of a knowledge/technique gap. So think about all the good things you can do if you close that, and that's fast. That doesn't need to take long. I'm here to I'm here to stand in the face of that. I disagree with the notion that things should take hundreds of hours to master. I really disagree with that. So many skills I've mastered in like once, and then other skills still elude me because I probably haven't yet tackled them correctly. So it's not even a matter of time. It's a matter of discovering them, realizing them, understanding them, and then I'll be good in that way too. So I should take this advice as well. Mark, how are you doing? Long time no see. I've been distracted with my other hobby. What is your other hobby? Feel free to share. I don't remember if I know or not. If you told me before, my apologies. But yeah, it's good. All hobbies make one happy. Melodor Art. Hello, Liron. I don't have much time, so I'm just popping in to ask something. Do you have any painting critique live stream planned? Also, you inspire me to start watercolor. Thanks. Yeah, that's awesome. Not as of right now. I'll schedule once I schedule one. I'll let you know in all platforms. Hopefully. I love the profile pic. Is that something you painted? That's really cool. Christina, I find sometimes we get best results when we don't care so much about the result. Yeah, but the thing is, so it's not necessarily the not caring that makes it a good result, because then if you try to actively not care, it just wouldn't work. It's just about what not caring allows you. which is why I think chasing the not caring about a painting is a bit lopsided. I'm not saying that's what you do, but I'm saying it's because some people do that. It's a bit lopsided, and honestly, it's very hard not to care about something that you do care. So sometimes maybe it's about finding the thing you care about even more. Um, but yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, when if you care about, because you know what, so when I painted this huge piece that I shared, the divination painting, I cared about the result all along. So that's not quite, it's interesting. I did care about the result, and for many paintings I care about the result as I paint them. I would argue that for this one too I cared about the result. um it's funny because when you think about it logically, like who taught us that caring about the result hurts it? It's an interesting thought experiment because I mean, I want to say that there is some sense to that, right? But then again, it became such common wisdom that I don't think it's wisdom anymore. You know what I mean? It's almost like everyone knows that caring about something too much will get it to fail. Well, I don't know. I mean, I care a lot about most of my paintings, and even the ones that went perfect. So it's an interesting thought experiment. We can circle back to it. Mistakes are part of the process, therefore they become learning opportunities, even when we do them repeatedly until, yeah. But here's the thing. So that's another trap that people may go into of, um, a belief that you have to make the same mistake many times, where usually it's more about noticing it once enough so that it's in your awareness, and then the trusting the process part maybe begins, because once you understand the exact mistake and you better understand when it happens and then what you do as part of that mistake, it's more of a matter of, sorry about the noise, it's more of a matter of letting nature do its thing, which is you'll make the necessary corrections, right? So I do agree. Just think that it's important not to turn this into another, self-imposed limitation, I guess. In a way, it could be. I mean, not necessarily. Um, Sorry, 1 second. I want to try something. Okay, good. I got a call from Be My Eyes, the app. I wanted to try and answer because usually people answer before me, but I said I'll try just in case no one answers. But good. Um, yep. Joshua, when I make mistakes, I always end up messing up my painting when trying to fix the problem. See, that's interesting. So that sounds to me like it makes a lot of sense because the idea of, even the idea of, noticing a mistake, it's so heavy. Um, as soon as so let me think about it. So sometimes when I recognize a mistake, um, I will react to it in the best way possible, which is not react, just not react even. Just continue doing my thing and painting. And funny enough, when I do that, things tend to work themselves out. Um, I think the reactiveness that mistakes bring about is the problem, is the limiting factor, is the thing that makes people mess up. It's how they become overreactive. They say that if you fix someone's technique and anything at all, they'll run to the other extreme. And instead of making that smaller, they're here, they need to be here. You tell them they need to be here, they'll go here. They'll go like full overcorrection. So that could be another thing, by the way. Um, so yeah, Christian happens to me too. I notice when I care too much about the result. Yeah, yeah. That because I think there are two kinds of. So you know what? Here, I think I figured something out. I don't know. Let me know if this resonates with you. I think if you truly care too much about the result, too much, if you care a lot about the result, the thing is, so okay, if I look in my day-to-day life, the things I care most about are the things that get done, are the things that I successfully do. That's the things I care most about. So if I care most about the result of a painting, I know that it will probably end up looking good. That's me. I would challenge this idea, you and Christina. Do you care too much about the result, or do you care a lot about what it will bring you? Meaning, because think about it, really, it's hard for me to explain in words, but if you really care about the result, you'll probably do whatever you can to make sure you get a good result. Meaning, you'll do the proper preparation, you'll have enough paint mix, you'll have whatever it is, right? Whatever it is, you'll squeeze fresh paint out of the tubes. Sometimes I've had it before. I care more about what the good result will bring me, which is maybe a good feeling, satisfaction, happiness, or even praise, to post it online and have people like it. That's a different thing, because that to me sounds more like a recipe for disaster. So I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I'm wondering if that, because think about it really logically, if you care about the result, you'll do whatever you can to get a good result. To me, I don't see this connection necessarily anymore. If I care too much about something, that's an interesting point. The anchor, your picture image, and your final art piece are different. I cannot that much. You can't get like that much colors in your picture and your final. Do you mean that the picture I show here, like this and this, look different? I'm not sure. Let me know. They look practically identical. Yeah, I don't think that's what you mean, but yeah. Sugar is sweet. I struggle with mixing color. It often turns out dull and boring, so I try to learn more about colors. Turns out dull and boring. Yeah, the one cure for that, if you really want to solve this issue, you can do it right now. And I'll circle back to what I said a few moments ago. Usually, when colors end up being too dull and boring, I assume when you say dull, they're muted. They're very gray, right? It's a mix of grays. One may be a little red and another may be a little blue. Hear me out. When that happens, usually what happens is over mixing. It's too much mixing. You're tempted to not just put the yellow on the palette and mix a yellow, for example. You're tempted to add just a bit of red, just a bit of blue, just a bit of other colors. That's usually what happens. So in order to fix that, all one has to do is just not mix as much. But remember what I said, usually if you make a correction, people will overcorrect. Now, maybe what you need is to overcorrect in order to find a solution. But I did do a video a short while ago about how to not don't mix your colors. Basically, they're like a week or two ago. That tackles the exact thing. It's a very easy solution. So this is a great use case. If you're willing to really solve this problem, all you really need to do, all you have to do is mix less. If you're willing to do that, I would experiment with not mixing at all. Just use the colors purely. You can fix it right now. You don't have to. It doesn't have to take months or years. Curious if that's the issue you're having and if you can solve it. You'll find that you can paint with very strong, vibrant colors. Now, if you're talking about how the colors look together, meaning the overall color scheme, yeah, that I don't even know exactly how to teach that. To me, it just comes with time, but not a lot of time, But yeah. Mark, we learn by trying to fix mistakes too. It's all good. It takes time, patience, and lots of practice to learn any new skill. Yeah, if you talk about full mastery, then yeah, maybe it can take some time. But I feel like, so that's the thing, like the 10,000 hour rule, which we talked about before a bit. I didn't paint for 10,000 hours. Now, I don't know if I'm fully a master. I'm probably not, but I'll know I'm a master, by the way, when I can do this kind of a thing at will. But I'm not yet. Actually, I just got a good insight. That's actually a good idea for me. Sorry. We just gleaned an important insight. But yeah. So I would say how many hours I devoted to watercolor painting. It's interesting. I don't think it's not nearly close to 10,000 hours. I would say it's in maybe thousands, 2,000s, maybe. So that's a tenth or 20% of common knowledge. So I'll have to disagree with the notion of a long time. I think it's a I think it's a nonlinear path in some ways, so you could get really, really good in specific aspects you care about, and then maybe become more well-rounded with time. But yeah, I just don't like the idea of it taking years and lots of hard work. And I mean, I never felt like I had to really work hard in watercolor. Even if I called it hard work in the past, it's not really work. It was always fun. There were some frustrations, but those are very anecdotal, specific experiences. I wouldn't say as a whole long period of time or anything like that. You know, I only use paint on Arch, which is expensive, so not wanting to mess up is related to economics. If you use cheaper paper, it's hard because of poor paper quality. Um, so yeah, I agree. That's what you experience, right? Um, but I think it's again, it's some wanting to mess up related to economics. But see, the thing is, so that's interesting. So it's not necessarily even caring about the result; it's the fear of messing up, which is a completely different thing, by the way. Again, if you care about getting a good result, to me, that's different from being scared of messing up. That's a completely different thing. The fear of messing up it's an interesting one because I think I mentioned this before. Like I never really had it, at least not to a degree where it crippled me. Um, so it's interesting. I'll have to explore that more on my own to figure out if I can come up with a good solution or answer to that. I wouldn't know, but yeah, that's very different from caring too much about the result. Now, of course, if as soon as you use good paper, that fear arises of I'm going to waste good materials. How can you use all of your faculties when that fear arises? That's the question. It's probably impossible. So now the solution to the problem, the real solution, the one that will actually solve it once and for all, is to understand that fear and where it comes from. That's the actual answer. I don't know what the solution is, but that's at least a part of it. That's the path, right? The path to figure out, I think. Mark, no, I don't think I mentioned the other hobby. Tai Chi. Oh, cool. Tai Chi is cool. Yeah. That happened to me too so often. Yeah. Maybe the mistakes can turn into uniquenesses, which is a good thing. Yeah, to me, I usually roll with them. I don't recognize too many things as mistakes in my painting because honestly, if I'm fully immersed in the painting, which is what happened with this one, if I'm fully immersed, nothing I do can be a mistake. And that's a completely different place to be in. So imagine you can do no wrong. To me, I find that when I take the path of least resistance and I just paint for myself and I have fun and enjoy it, nothing I can do will be an actual mistake. And again, I don't use it as a technique like the immersion technique or like the not caring technique. It's not a technique. It actually has to happen naturally in order for it to work. This is why I always recommend people find the thing they love painting, the thing that makes them want to paint it, because I think for many that's the only hope, because you find something you care about more than you fear. So you care more about the enjoyment and immersion in painting that thing you love. You care about it more than you fear getting a bad result, which is also why a lot of times plein air can be beneficial to some, not to everyone, but for some people. I notice as soon as they do plein air, they actually see the subject matter in front of them, and the fear is no longer there. It's replaced by interest, genuine interest in the subject. Because think about it this way: think about, you have a still life arrangement, just a bunch of fruits. You bought them from the market or whatever. You place them on your table, and they fascinate you. You look at them; they look amazing. You want to paint them. You even, let's say, you care a lot about the result. something in you enjoys looking at them so much that it beats any other fear. You cannot do any mistake like that. It's saying it's a state of being is almost saying it too lightly, but that's what it is really. But yeah. Inderjeet, hi, hello, I'm from India. Cool, thank you for being here. Inderjeet. I meant not caring isn't being uptight about it. When I started rollerblading, I was so afraid of falling. I was always bracing myself for a fall, which because I was tense was more likely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I can definitely correlate this to now doing jiu-jitsu. Same thing. If I'm timid or whatever, I'll completely forget what I was taught. I'll completely lose it. But when I'm in the moment, I'm somehow able to bring out something that very easily. To use my experience, because you do have a lot of experience, Christina, in painting. It's about actually being able to use it. Glorimar, we just need to be kind to ourselves first. Write down your goods and mistakes, keep them present. So, I agree with I think writing down, so when you catch a mistake, I think writing it down can be very beneficial. Almost have a list, but not making this the goal itself, to have a list of mistakes. Because usually, I think if you really drill down, most people probably make 1, 2, 3 mistakes max. It's not a list of 20 items in it. To me, I know my mistakes. Inaccurate colors. I had another one that was real clear. By the way, this is why I think I love this one, because the colors were just super duper on point. Inaccurate colors, that would be the number 1 for me. Not enough flow between shapes. That's another one. That's why I love strong light and shadow, where I see the shapes clearly. I think those are my 2 main mistakes, honestly. It's just the flow and connection between shapes and colors, which is probably, again, why I love this one so much. Look at the connections. Again, I'm going to bring them up. Look at the connections on the left-hand side. Sorry, Glorimar, I'll just remove that for a second. Look at the connections on the left, the carrot, the tomatoes down left, the garlic, right? And compare that to the right. Now, I do love the colors on the right, but the connections aren't there, not as much at least. And that's the type of thing I really enjoy. So I'm able to now, actually, that's a good insight, drill down or dumb down my mistake into just 2 main ones. If you have a list of 20 mistakes, first off, it's impractical, and second, I would say it's inaccurate. What you want to do is find the one mistake that's responsible for 5 other mistakes. You know what I mean? So yeah. This is why I love sketchbooks. Yeah, sketchbooks are great. It's so fun. You just produce things that look good almost without even trying very often, just because you don't have that element of stress. It's really interesting. Again, your technique is the same. You're the exact same person, but for some reason you have these resources, internal resources, that in one occasion you're able to tap into, and the other you're not. And that leads also to less enjoyment of the process, which is big. Lydia, for me, lack of confidence and worry definitely affect the outcome. At best, at worst, I'm paralyzed. Yeah, so that you don't even paint at all. That's something that's way above my pay grade. I always try and come up with creative solutions to lack of confidence or worry about the result and fear. But it's so hard because everyone has to like, it's a problem. It's a real problem, and everyone has to dive into their own problem to find a solution. I would never be able to. All I can do is, this is why I started this channel, is to try and inspire others. Maybe someone who has that, but seeing someone else do it with full confidence will inspire them to make that change. So yeah. Mark, I love that observation about not turning the natural process into any kind of limitation. Yeah. That's because I find myself, removing more and more of that with time, which is great. More of those, unnecessary limitations. Christina, regarding not caring, what I meant was not being so afraid to mess up. When I started rollerblading, I was so afraid of falling, I became so stiff and tense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Ironically, the way to avoid falling, I discovered over time, is to loosen up. Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Tembo, caring too much can cause overthinking and not trusting in your ability. You know what? That's interesting. I'm not sure that overthinking is bad. I'm starting to really doubt a lot of things because the question is what you do with overthinking. Are you paralyzed or are you overthinking and making sure that you have the right equipment and making sure you make the right connections and you're fully in the zone? If it pulls you out of the process, yes, I agree. Yep. Yep, definitely. Thinker, should we use colors from image or imagination for a painting? See, that's the kind of question you ask yourself, not me. Not guy on the internet, but your own taste. I would say taste is what matters in this case. To me, sometimes I love the colors and I'll try and mimic them to the T like this one. Sometimes I dislike the colors or I think the colors could be enhanced and I would think I'm improving upon them and end up painting the same colors, which still looks good, but looking back at this one, should have changed some colors up. So it really depends on, for some people, if the painting, if the reference doesn't have the colors they love, they don't have any motivation to paint it. And then the solution is not to change them, but just not paint it. This is why it's so personal. And the only way to really discover is to try it out. Maybe you'll find out that you like certain colors, you don't like certain colors. Maybe you'll find that you don't care about the colors so much. Really is personal. Mark, letting go of expectations, or rather unreasonable expectations, will help all of us in whatever we do. Even very successful athletes, for example, talk about breaking things down to bite-sized chunks. So there is some sense there, but if I truly look at my experience so far, I wouldn't be in a rush to call anything unreasonable expectations. I think because you could say, why not expect the best? Why not expect to learn something fast? Why not expect it to take a short while? Why should it take long? I never believed that watercolor painting should take long to master. And I think that's why I learned really fast. I think I learned faster than most people I know, at least most people I look at around me. I never had that belief that it should take long. I have that belief in other areas in life, funny enough. And that's where I see it does affect progress. Not for painting, though. So I wouldn't be in a hurry to, if you started yesterday and you expect tomorrow to paint something super accurately and beautifully, yeah, that may be an unreasonable expectation. Maybe not. Maybe for some it's not. But I think anything beyond that, I would be interested in hearing some people's unreasonable expectations and see where they got them, because a lot of the biggest achievements in the world were made by people, were achieved by people with unreasonable quote unquote expectations. So I'd be very wary of that as well. I do agree to some extent. So yeah, not completely disregarding it. Joss, hi Liron, live as if you were to die. Live as if you were to die tomorrow. Learn as if you were to live forever. Live as if you were to die tomorrow. Learn as if you were to live forever. The only way to success. I love the first part. I don't think that's there's one and only way to success. I think it's different for every person. So I would say no to that. I do love the idea of live as if you were to die tomorrow, just because I think for something you really care about, you wouldn't waste time. For something that's really important to me, like painting was important. It was important. I don't know why. I'm not sure why, but it spoke to me. So it was important to me. So I did not waste time. I think I made progress in those 7-8 years, more than people make in a lifetime. And that was because it was important enough. And I think for things that are important enough, you won't waste time. Now there's a lot of I think there's a lot of encouragement, take that word as you will, a lot of encouragement in that, because I think sometimes the reason I don't feel motivated to do certain things is because I perceive them to be very difficult, very challenging, taking a long time to master. But there is something very, very assuring in knowing that there is a reachable destination and it's not too far away. If you can, I think one of the best ways to show this is with something a little more generic, like dieting, losing weight, and looking different, looking better, getting in shape. If you could see like the version of yourself that could be in maybe 6 months or a year, um, that is much better, whatever you define as better, I think that would motivate a lot of people. But I think so many people believe they'll never make it, right? Or it'll be impossible, or it'll be um, so tough, that they just never do it. Um, but knowing that just 6 months from now, you could be at a totally different place, I think that brings with it a lot of encouragement. So I think, in some senses, if you care enough about something, there's this sense of urgency to it. That's what I experience about some of the things I'm doing. That's when I know I'm really connected to something. If I feel this sense of urgency of I want to get it done, and getting done equals becoming good at something. So yeah, it's some interesting thoughts. I love that the first part of the sentence especially. Escorbet, Liron, will you share your insight and how it relates to what you may want to change or try? Yes. My insight, I think you're talking to about what I just wrote down. So I wrote down, I will know I'm a master when I can paint things like this one on command. So whenever I can, it became very clear to me the moment I spoke it, that I'll know that I mastered the medium whenever I can do something like this, especially again, this area on command. Meaning I do 10 of these and 10 end up looking like this. Not like this exactly, right? For every reference, every subject matter. When I'm able to produce this kind of a thing on command, at least I'll know I mastered my current weak spots, which are probably my my main ones, just colors and flow. So then that really narrows down the possibility of what I want to work on and improve. Meaning, it provides me with a lot of clarity so I can start asking some very specific questions. The main ones are, why can't I paint this on command? That's a good question to ask yourself. Why can I not yet paint something like this on command? Now, this is a stand-in for anything you want. I recognize that this is exactly my weaknesses embodied into a painting where they don't exist, right? This shows the negative. All the things I'm bad at, here they turned out perfectly. So whenever I can do this on command, I know I've mastered these issues, right? That's the point. Now, this again brings me into some very specific questions. Why can I not do this at the moment? What stops me from doing it? What stops me from mixing accurate colors? What stops me from getting the flow I want? These are deep questions. It sounds very, what stops me from getting the flow I want? Use more water. Maybe, maybe not. I didn't use tons of water with this painting. So now these are questions that are very specific that I can explore, and hopefully, to tell you the truth, the feeling I have right now in my heart, so to speak, is within a month or 2 weeks I can solve these issues forever. That's what I'm feeling right now. Could be wrong, could be overestimating, underestimating. It could take 4 months. What is 4 months of solving your two biggest issues in painting? It's nothing. It's nothing. It's not a long time. But I have a feeling right now in my gut, I can fix this within a month. I don't know why, but the feeling just dawned on me now that I see it written as clearly as this. I just had that insight. Okay, oh, that's my benchmark. Okay, so I know what to do. That's the kind of insight I just gained. It sounds so obvious, but I never looked at it this way up until this very second I said it here in the live stream. I knew that my colors are off. I knew that, but now that I'm seeing it this clearly, seeing the problem, right? I told you that's the thing, seeing the problem for what it is. So if you're scared, thus you end up making mistakes, thus you end up judging yourself and making more mistakes. What is the actual problem here? What is the actual fear? What makes it arise? When does it arise? Are there times you paint when it doesn't? Right? Maybe when you're outside, it doesn't. Maybe when you're working in your sketchbook, it doesn't. What does that tell you? Why does it not arise in the sketchbook? What are you doing differently in the sketchbook? As soon as you see the problem for what it is, you won't have to do anything. You won't have to actively solve anything. You won't have to actively find a solution. Finding a solution to a problem is usually a band aid. You have a problem, you're looking for a specific solution somewhere in the ether to slap on the problem. That doesn't work. For the most part, in my experience, it doesn't work. What does work is to figure out what the problem is. That's where the solution is hidden, dead inside it. So yeah, that was the huge insight. Actually, I'm happy you asked because saying it again more clearly helped me. I now better understand it myself. So it's interesting. Was that by Gandhi? I'm not sure if that quote. I'm not sure. First name, I have a question. Does a painting still look good even if the shadows are messed up? For example, shadows painted on wrong spots and wrong places. All the time. All the time. I just know it to be true because I've painted enough paintings where I invented a lot of shadows and the painting looks great. No one noticed. Everyone loved them. But then when I look at them, the shadows are almost reversed in some spots. Even if you look at my the divination, the large painting, last one I posted on Instagram, you'll notice that where the sun is doesn't really make sense with the shadows. So the answer to your question, a painting can look good either way. That's based on pure experience. I think it's, again, going back to the point of you can make no mistakes if you're truly getting out of the way of art. You let art happen. You let that connection happen with whatever. You are just channeling the art in a way. You don't bring too much of yourself in it. You're just doing, and all of us can do that. Actually, I believe. So as long as you do that, things will connect, even if some things are technical mistakes, right? Technical mistakes. Let me ask you another question. Can a painting look good if some of the edges are different? So, for example, you see I kept a loose edge on the carrot and the garlic, and then there's a sharp edge here, soft. What if I were to reverse all the edges where this would be a blurry edge, this would be a sharp edge, this would... The answer is yes, it could still look good, because it has nothing to do with... It's never about the specifics. It's always about the entire thing. So yeah, I can't tell where I'm supposed to put the shadows and light. And yeah, so I figured that's where it leads. So maybe that's a problem you want to solve for yourself, right? Fixing the understanding of light and shadow. But that doesn't mean it has to stop you from producing art, right? That's the bottom line. But if there's a gap in knowledge of shading, you can very easily close that gap. There's a lot of tutorials online. You'll watch one, two. I think Proco has a few good ones on core shadows, and I think once you get that, which is an understanding, you can understand in a lesson that's 20 minutes long, and then you try it out a few times, you're good to go. So why not improve that and also not let it stop you from making your art, whatever you consider like your art. Yeah, you love landscapes. I love landscapes. I just painted something nice. I actually filmed it too. I'll show it to you. First time. Oh, I actually showed it on my story. It's just a fun one. Very loose, quick painting. I filmed this one, so I will share the process with you. By the way, the thing that attracted me to paint this one to begin with was, because there's always something, the interesting colors here on that cliff, starting from the yellows and oranges all the way to the blues. That's the main reason I even painted this thing. And that carried me through. And then I found interest in how the ocean blends into the sky. I found interest in the small boats and details, found interest in the abstraction of the buildings. But there was something that called me to paint this. Otherwise, I wouldn't have. So yeah. Adria, I've struggled a bit mixing enough paint. I use pan paints, Would using a bigger brush to do the initial mix yield more paint so I don't run out during a painting? Yeah, so that's a good technical question. The answer, unfortunately, is no. In my experience, using a bigger brush actually makes it harder, because so I have some bigger brushes here, like these. What ends up happening, they have such a great water capacity that you'll have a hard time bringing out enough paint from the pan. Instead, there are better solutions to your question. Uh, what happens when you use a big brush? Again, I'll repeat that because I really glazed over it, pun intended. So what happens is you bring in paint, but the brush is huge, so it absorbs the paint and the water, the paint and the water. So to produce um, enough paint that is strong enough as well, you'll work for a long time. You'll spend several minutes just bringing out the paint. A couple of things that can help is actually using larger pens, not the small ones that are a square, but rather the rectangular ones, because that gives you more room of contact with the brush and the pen so that you can pull out from the pen more paint. That's one that could help. Another thing that could help is spray on the pens with your water sprayer so that they get moist a few moments before you start painting. Another thing is sometimes some pen paints are just they dry very hard, making it very hard to mix enough. You add more water and you try and you rub the brush against the pen and nothing comes out. Not enough paint comes out. That's not your fault. That could be the pigment. So either use other pigments that are softer, or use tubes if you can. Use tube paint. It just tends to, if it's freshly squeezed, you're golden. And if it dries in a pen, it tends to, most colors I use at least tend to dry not too hard on the palette. So yeah, it could be something you're doing, but probably not. Using a bigger brush will not help. It's more for covering large areas. That would be the use of a large brush, not for mixing a lot of paint. Now one thing, and this is what I say, the solution to the problem is within the problem, right? So if you actually, instead of looking for solutions outside the problem, you'll solve this problem. I have a solution for you. And I did this in the large painting. I just did the divination. I took a plastic cup. I took my tube and I squeezed a bunch of paint into the cup. And I added a little water, just a bit like this, and mixed it. So what I had was a large quantity of strong paint. I mixed it with a toothpick or something like that. And in the cup, I had a strong, nice kind of raw umber, reddish brown color. And I could use that for the bottom wash. So there are solutions to this problem, especially if you're working large, you're struggling with it with large washes. There are solutions to that. Instead of using the brush, dipping it into the palette, into the wells, into the mixing areas constantly, you can solve this very easily by taking a cup, squeezing a large amount of paint in it, like you would almost for brushing your teeth, probably a little more depending on the size of paper, and then adding water to that, mixing thoroughly, because there can be chunks in there of paint that hasn't melted, and that will solve your problem. This specific one, especially for larger pieces, I use that. You don't have to use the brush to mix the color. You can mix it in advance in a cup, or you can do a lot of things, just mentioning it. Now, that's a good tip that refers to something else, but I'll take it for this one. Thank you, first name. Mark, if someone's worried about the cost of expensive paper when practicing, we can practice on smaller pieces of paper and or use both sides. Yeah, and or rinse out the paint. Yeah, rinse out the paint. That never worked for me, but if it works for you on your paper, that's great. To me, I have this drawer here. It's filled with test paper. On the other side of this test paper are sometimes paintings I did during YouTube demos, things of that nature. I tend to not throw anything. I use these more as test papers, but you can use these to do these kinds of experiments. If you're struggling with a specific color or specific mixing technique, you can use these as well. I always try and save these up, rip them to smaller pieces, and use them again. Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Hello, says hello. Hey, first time, I have to learn to let myself practice. I get too caught up in every painting I paint has to be an art piece. It's interesting. Yeah, why not? Why not have every painting turn out an art piece? Question is how you define an art piece. If, if you define it as something that has to be perfect, um, then you know. But if you just let it out, there's no reason that that won't happen. It's. I wish I could communicate this mindset. I don't know how. I don't know how. I'll think about it some more. Um, I think the act of practicing is best performed when you just do the thing you were about to do anyway. So the purpose of practice is to improve your performance. Um, so the best way to practice is to perform, if that makes sense. And in our field, performance is just painting, you know? Um, if you practice for practice sake, that again can be another trap of it becoming the goal, it becoming the purpose. Just practice, and then you can lose sight of the thing you that made you start in the first place. You know, you may not, but I'm saying some people that can happen. Um, Whatever you make of that, you know. Joshua, bad mistakes is what makes you evolve. And that is why. So yeah, I think, and that's why practice makes sense. I think mistakes at the end of the day are just a small sign that tells you, hey, this is something you can improve. Now, where I'll diverge from a lot of people is then the improvement. I don't think should take long. I think it could take minutes even. But yeah, yeah, bad mistakes. It's one of those signs that tell you, hey, look here, you messed that up. Yeah, it's an opportunity to just solve these problems. Glormar started painting watercolor florals at 52. If fear is present, no progress is achieved. Made a comment from my experience. I mean, yeah, yeah, no, I get it. I get it. Yep. What's your opinion on a master copy? I don't see you doing that. Oh, I did it a lot in the past, but the more I discover what I enjoy painting, it's very hard, honestly, to find a master's work that I will enjoy painting more than something new. It's very hard for me to find that kind of a thing anymore. Which is why you haven't seen me do it for a long, long time. I did a lot of it in the past. I did a lot of it in my first year or two in watercolor. I followed a lot of Peter Schiller's tutorials here on YouTube. A lot of YouTubers, a lot of the big ones, the small ones, you know, watercolor. I just don't find any passion in that anymore, and I think to me that's the ultimate sign that I'm settling into my own in a way, in a good way. Settling has a lot of bad connotations, but yeah, in a good way. Richard, hello, beautiful people. Hey, thank you for being here. Escorbet, please share how the different vegetable in the painting of yours that you like relate to one another versus the other painting of yours where they do not interrelate. Let's see. So the main relation is obviously the edges, right? So what you can see here, let me open it up like this actually. Or you know what? I'll just hold them up. So the clear thing to see, especially in this one, right? And I like the colors here a lot. I think they could be better, but I like them. There's just a lot of hard edges. There are very few connections, like physical connections. You can see some connections here with the shadow, here especially. See this? The onion turns into a very smooth transition into a shadow. But then here there's a bit of a connection between the purple and the orange onions here. But then a lot of it is characterized by hard edges and hard separations here, here, all of that. Whereas the colors are I mix them quite a bit. I mix them a lot. So you end up with a rather muted palette for the most part. I know it looks colorful, but it's a pretty muted palette. It's just orange, purple, and gray, pretty much. A bit of a red, yellow, but mostly orange, and that's what I think I'm missing. Now here, to be honest, from the beginning, this scene was more interesting to me. Like I had more personal interest in this, which is again what's responsible for this result being beautiful. Now I love how these two tomatoes are just completely engulfed in the shadow, and you can really see it. They're completely. It's a smooth transition into the shadow. There's some funky things going on here, but look at how it completely connects to the pepper. Look at how the carrot and the garlic are fully connected, and the carrot connects to the background perfectly. These two, whatever these are connected to the background here, the dark background, but also to this larger vegetable that has no, it doesn't yet have even clear shadow. I need to go over that one, darken it. Same for the green here. Need to darken it. So there's just way more connectivity on a very direct basis that was performed in the first wash. That's the key. It was done really in the initial stages of the painting process, rather than later trying to create smoother transitions. And I love how some things just fade into the dark background. So it's a much stronger connection. It's much more apparent. And I think it tells a better story. Now, colors wise, also, I think the way I broke down the colors and the way they work, I'm not sure exactly why the color harmony works so well. I know why the colors I chose work well together. Just like in this one, the colors work well together. I'm just missing some colors. Here, I don't know why, but I'm very satisfied with the amount of colors there are, with the variety of colors. And it's funny because there isn't even one strong blue here, but I don't need it. The rest of the colors tell the story. There's a bit of blue hidden here in the shadow, just a small touch of it. You can see it better, of course, in the scan. Let me show you up there. There's a bit of blue in the shadow, maybe also a bit next to the tomato right here. Look at the scan. See a bit of blue. So that's probably what the difference is, and why I much prefer the latter one, the one on the left, obviously. But sometimes, sometimes there isn't a good explanation. Sometimes you just prefer one to the other for weird, unapparent reason, Shuyun, thank you for this. I feel inspired. Oh, cool. That's the best I can ask for, the person who will be inspired by that kind of approach will be, and then you can, do whatever you want with it. You like Marvel or DC? Not so much. I was never that much into it. I did watch a few Marvel. I watched Endgame, Captain Marvel, all of that. I watched the latest Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. I never really connected with the way they tell stories. It always felt, this is such a hot take, but I never really liked them, unfortunately. It always feels too jokey, like too much jokes, not enough seriousness. That's Marvel. I really miss some of the seriousness, some of the like heroics. It feels like the superheroes aren't being heroes really anymore. As for DC, I don't have enough of a experience with them. I did watch, I watched a few Batmans that I really liked. I actually liked the animated series, Batman the Animated Series. I grew up with in the 90s, I think it was, yeah. Late 90s, I think. That I loved. But DC, yeah, I love the Batmans I watched. I love the Joker film. I think I preferred DC to Marvel, but even then, it never spoke to me the way I wanted to. I think it's probably because I did grow up on more of the Japanese and Eastern style of cartoons and characters, and that's why. Even kids shows here, when I was growing up, were anime based. So you had Marco, that boy looking for his mom. You had the Moomins. Those are all Japanese Canadian productions, or Japanese. You know, uh, Japan really took over animated stuff, and then that really um, was imprinted in me. So it's something I prefer to the American superhero for some reason. Of course, I'll enjoy that. I don't watch that many movies, so I'll always enjoy going to the cinema and watching a movie, even bad, like really bad movies. I cannot imagine walking out in the middle of a movie. because if I'm there and it's the big screen and it's the experience, I'll always stay through, even the most boring of things, probably. So it's not like I'm saying it's super ultra boring or anything like that, but yeah, I do enjoy the cinema experience, but not necessarily really, a Marvel DC. It's not really the thing for me. Maybe DC a little more than Marvel. So yeah, sorry about that. Tempo artwork. For me, when I overthink, I lose confidence in my own judgment. The freshness in my painting is affected. Yep, because your own judgment, ironically, again, is the thing that carries you through a painting and leads to it being a masterpiece. Your own judgment that is there, that exists there. It's always like this. It's never finding an external solution. It's always removing the thing that obscures your clarity and your own vision. What you have is the best, the most perfect thing that can produce amazing masterpieces. And it's all about removing the thing that blocks you from doing that, if that makes sense. That I find is the best way. This is why the best solution is to ask, why am I not able to? What is the thing that's blocking me? And the assumption, the underlying assumption there is that you have the thing that it takes to create a masterpiece. It's just about removing the thing that stands in the way. If that makes sense. Oh, by the way, Escorbet, thank you so much for the super chat. Much appreciated. Thank you so much. Let's go back here so I don't miss other comments. Yeah. Mark, occasionally draw or paint with your non-dominant hand. That way you can feel less. Yeah, that's actually, I think it goes deeper than not feeling self-critical. I think you're actually using your artistic resources differently when you're doing that. I don't know what it is. I really have no idea, but the times I tried it, it always leads to interesting results. Always. It's so funny. Another one, paint small A5 or A6 paintings with only one brush and only 10 brush strokes. Yeah, we talked about that a bit, like just minimal brush strokes and see how it goes. There is a very solid foundation to painting small. There is a very solid truth to it. It actually is easier to paint small. Some people will say painting small doesn't inspire me, which makes it harder to paint. But if you're not that, painting small is just easier. Less paint, less mixing, less, faster. You can go faster. There are a lot of advantages to that for sure. Thank you, first name. Ellen, sir, can we send you something you will definitely like to paint? And if yes, then where? I don't know if you can send me something I'll definitely like to paint, but you can try it. If I like it, then yeah, I may paint it one day. You can send it to this email address. Send it here. Tell me that's something you'd want me to paint, and we'll see. Maybe I will. Adrian, following up, I don't paint super large, just 5x7 sketchbook. I'm slowly getting some tube paint, so mixing isn't as much of an issue. That's excellent. The cup idea is great. Yep. There are so many things you can do to make life easier. Smexy Ryan, I see what you did there. My shadows always look too blue. And when I try to neutralize the shadow, it's always too muddy and yellow. I just started using watercolor last year, so I guess I'm still a beginner. Yeah, I would need to see a painting example. I can kind of guess what you're saying. But I would be curious to see an example, so feel free to send me to that same email address. There is something to be said about, okay, I had that too. All of my shadows look too blue. That usually happens when you look at your blue paint as the darkest, which makes it the easiest to mix dark shadows with. Now, there are a few possibilities here. One, it could be that your other paints are too light, so it's very hard to mix shadows with them. That's a possibility. But more often than not, it's just we turn it into a fallback kind of paint for darks. So what you can try doing is put in the blue in the palette like you would, mix it, then add some red. It will start turning purple, right? And then add some yellow. Now, at first, this is what happened to me. I have a feeling it may happen to you too. You'll add a bit of yellow and it will feel like it's becoming yellow. So you stop. Don't stop. Continue mixing. Take a clean piece of paper and look at the color away from any other distractions, away from your palette. Look at it on a piece of paper and ask yourself, is this color gray or is it purple? Now, I have a guess that it'll be on the purple side because you didn't add enough yellow. Once you add more yellow, it will, and of course, I'm making grand generalizations. I don't know the exact colors you're using, but this is something that happened to me with many different colors, so it may happen to you too. Add more yellow. You'll slowly see it turn to gray. Once you do that, you know you mixed a gray color successfully. Okay, and what will happen is now you don't have to rely on blue because that gray you can pull towards the red, towards the yellow. You can have it a bit warm, a bit cool. You can play around with it. Okay, now, so I always recommend something like a quinacridone rose for a red because you can go dark with that. So that's PV19. And then for yellow, it's lemon yellow. It's PY. What is it? 43, or am I confusing it? I don't remember which one exactly it is, but that's the one you want, the most versatile. And see if you can mix just a gray, because if you mix a gray, you know you don't have to rely on your blue for your shadows. Because I suspect that might be something you're doing. I had a time where all of my shadows were purple because I didn't realize that I can actually add yellow to shadows on the palette while I'm mixing. Now, let's set all of what I set aside. One more thing you can try is working with two colors, which is a blue and an orange. So something like a French ultramarine, phthalo blue, whatever, and an orange like a burnt umber, burnt sienna, something like this. I don't have a good example here, but what this does is you'll just play on the scale of warm to cool. You won't have an issue with things being too blue or too yellow because you'll just have a warm and cool play. It will teach you a lot about color temperatures. That's one possibility of something to explore, may help. But I would need, of course, a specific example again to really tell what's going on. So hopefully that lengthy answer was relevant in some way, I hope. Sujanit, hi Liron, I'm back into watercolor. Most confused artist. It's me. Yeah, no worries. No worries. It's, that's, maybe you were meant to go back to it and leave it and go back to it. That's fine. What kind of art? So always learn with you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Are you interested in producing like finalized art, and do you have another medium in mind or just watercolor? I'm curious because maybe if the reason you're leaving watercolor is for other things, or just you don't have time for art, I'm curious to hear, because I've seen this type of message from you a couple of times before, so I'm curious. First name, are purple shadows sometimes used too? Shadows could be any color. You can recognize a bit of purple here under my blue right here. You can recognize a lot of different colors in the shadow. If you're asking if people often overuse purple, I had that issue. I would use purple way too much for shadows because it was the color that was easiest for me to use as dark color. And I'd end up just doing everything, making everything purple. Adria, I've been trying to make a chartreuse yellow green. What is that? I'm not familiar with that word. Okay, it's a type of liquor. Yeah, that kind of green. I've been trying to make a chartreuse yellow green vibrant, not as muted. Is there a good quality brand that you would recommend that might make a color like this? Yes. My Paul Rubens palette has a similar color. But what you're looking for, there's a specific color you can get that will achieve that. Let's see here. Because I had this color. I just don't remember the pigment. You can get very close, by the way, with lemon yellow and phthalo blue. You can get very close to this color. but just these two, lemon yellow and phthalo blue. And for the phthalo blue, you'd want to use green shade, not red shade. It becomes important if you want to mix that kind of a green. Let me see. Give me a second. I'll find it. I'll bring it over and we'll find it together. So this is my Paul Rubens palette. There it is. Okay. It's a pink palette. It's this one right here. Give it a second. Will it focus? It almost did a second ago. Yeah. Okay. Now the color that achieved that effect for me, there was one here. I'll try and find it. I use it as a pencil box, funny enough. Let's see which one it is. Obviously, it's this one. I've overused the heck out of it. So it's the third from the bottom. So they call it yellow-green. And to mix it, they use PG36 and PY74. I'm going to write it down in the chat. You know, I could also take a picture. Let's see here. Let me show you, because this is something that a lot of people have issues with. Give me a second. We'll figure out what mix that is, because I'm actually not sure. Okay, there we go. And it won't be the exact same as the mix you described, but it will be close. So let me see here. Okay, I'm going to bring up the photo. That's the closest I've seen. Here we go. Okay, see this? That's what you want. So PG36, what is that? Phthalo green? Let's see. That's phthalo green yellow shade. And then the second one is PY74. That's lemon yellow, I think. I'm not sure though. Hansa yellow. Is it Hansa yellow medium? Let's see. Yeah, that's a Hansa yellow medium, it seems. So there you go. That's how they mix this green. And it's the closest I've seen to what you described. So you need a phthalo green and a Hansa yellow medium. I would try getting this with a phthalo blue and a lemon yellow. Now, here's the thing. You'll probably need more yellow than blue. That's where I got caught up before. I think it's 50-50. It is not. It's more like 30-70, something like that. 30% of the blue and 70% of the yellow. Not sure why, but that color is really close to yellow, as you have alluded to. Now, you may not get it to look like the chartreuse color you describe. You may need to do another glaze on top. So experiment with that. I found that this paint does it perfectly. Now, if you're... Actually, let me know if that works. I'm curious. If it doesn't, we'll find a different solution, because I've been struggling with that as well, and I think I finally managed to crack the code. Mainly doing oils and gouache. And do you enjoy them more? Megan, hello! I finally made it to a live stream. Work has been so busy. Excited to get some creative time. Oh, that's awesome! Thank you for being here. Yeah, it has been a while. Marina, green gold. Yeah, green gold. Let's see what that looks like. That won't. I don't think that will. Same. Yeah, so the color they're describing is a lot more. It's like green gold, but when you increase the vibrancy all the way to the end. The green gold is like a more muted version of that, so it's not gonna work. By the way, it is gonna work in the right context, right? If you mute everything around it, it will look bright. All colors are contextual. You can use, and that's, by the way, I forgot to mention this as a fix. Adria, what you can do is mute everything other than the green, so the green will look much more vibrant. Just a way of doing this. First name, how long to wait until doing a second layer? I notice I lay my art aside for a few minutes, then forget it for hours. Yeah, why am I not in focus? There we go. It's funny. Usually it's not too much. Maybe it's I don't know, 10, 15 minutes in my climate at least for it to dry fully. I use a hair dryer for that last 30%. I let it dry naturally for a while because it looks better, and then I'll use the hair dryer just to speed things up because I want to film or I want to do something else. But it shouldn't take longer than that. So if you forget about it for hours, that's funny. Yeah, I've been mixing with those colors, and I just wanted to get a tube. Okay, I'll look at the Daniel Smith green and gold. Yeah, so you would have to look at Paul Rubens, as I mentioned. Let's see if they sell these individually. I don't know. Paul Rubens watercolor. They definitely have the palette for sale, right? I can share a link with you. This is an affiliate link, so if you buy through it, I make a commission. Just how do you call that? Not a disclaimer, the other thing. Yeah, that is the exact palette I have. Pink palette. Now, do they have the specific color for sale? Paul Rubens. What do they call it? Yellow green. Green. Yeah, I only see. Palettes. I don't see individual watercolors. Watercolor tube. Let's see if there's such a thing. Yeah, I don't think there is such a thing. Oh, wait, I do see. I'm just not sure if it's gonna be the same colors. Yeah, I think some research will be necessary. I'm really not sure, but you'll have to do some Amazon research. Now, one thing you can do, so I've been toying around with that idea as well. You can just use, first off, you can squeeze the tubes together like this, side by side, and quickly mix that color just by bringing the brush over it. You don't have to use a different color for every pan. You can have one pan share two squeezes of the watercolor paint. That's an idea for you. One more thing is, and I've been thinking about trying it out, is to just bring out a bit of the paint and mix it physically like this, and then put it in a pan already mixed. That's another solution. But the easiest one would be to just squeeze both of them right next to one another in the same pan. Just same long pan, same one. See if it works for you. Then you don't have to mix all the time from two pans. You just use this one pan as a combination, because it's a very common one, I know. So yeah, very new to watercolor. It's a cool journey. It's a really cool journey, especially in the beginning. I thought about buying that exact palette. It's a good one. Could be green gold. Could work too. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Good. So happy that helps. Paul Rubens is pretty close. Yep. They also have a very nice orange I've been using. They call it I don't know, light red, but it's not a light red. It's actually a very opaque orange that I've been using a lot of. You can see. It's a slightly opaque orange, so you can paint over details with it, and it will be bright, like rooftops of cityscapes. It's perfect for that. Leah, hello. I'm trying out watercolor and I'm wondering why round brushes are primarily used than flat brushes. How does this benefit? Honestly, I think that with round brushes, um, the angle that I use the brush in doesn't matter as much. That's to me the there are two things actually. I find that flat brushes don't have as good a water capacity. They just don't. Every one of them I tried personally felt like I'm running out of water faster. That was a deal breaker in most cases. Now, if you find one that isn't, let me know. I'll be happy to try it out. But with that said, also the angle. So when you have a flat brush, obviously the angle where you hold it matters. For a round one, it doesn't. So it may be a little easier to use. Should it be the main brush you use? No, not necessarily. If you prefer flat brushes, they're great. Flat brushes have their uses, very good for details, for windows, for rooftops, square, sharp cornered shapes. They're great for it as well. Maybe you'll find that you prefer to use just a flat brush. If you look at some of Stan Miller's tutorials, he's using a flat brush all the time. So whatever works for you, I do think there's a benefit if you're not used to a flat brush to use a flat brush. What it does is it'll feel different, like drawing or painting with your weaker hand. So it may bring out something in you that you haven't experienced or thought about. So that's an added benefit. If you feel like, Leah, that a flat brush will serve you better, definitely give it a try. Definitely. It's just something that, it's very personal. Anyway, yeah, I thought about doing that, getting 2 tubes and mixing my perfect color into a pen. Yep, I'll do that soon. Christina, L, could you update us on any upcoming books and courses you're working on that we can look forward to in the future? Also, is your frustration-free watercolor class best for beginners? I think for anyone who struggles with painting looser, and if you feel like you're very tight in the way you paint, that's the one for you. I do think it's suitable for most beginners, but I will say if you already feel like you're painting very loosely, you may not be the greatest person to benefit from it, right? I'll teach you things you already know, and it won't matter as much. So that's that. Now, as for books and courses, I'm working on a perspective drawing course. It's actually going to be a two-parter, beginners and fundamentals and advanced course for perspective drawing. The beginners fundamentals course is much more complex than your typical perspective lessons. So it's not like the thing that everyone knows. It's not like 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, 3. It's way more in depth than that. But it is going to be divided into 2 because it's a huge topic and I want it to be digestible. So there's going to be 2 courses. I can't even give you like a number of months for it to be finished because I'm working on so many things simultaneously. As for books, I did think just yesterday about the Cars book and how I really need to finish that one. I just didn't like the way it looked, and I have to reformat it fully. But that may happen soon. I will keep you updated. I still don't know for both. For both, it's going to be very hard to give a specific date as of now. Unfortunately, not the best answer, but the truth. Chris, I love how you paint with a dirty palette. Can you please share some tips on how to use the leftover colors on your palette and get the color you want? So usually I don't do anything too clever. You got it, Leah. Yep. Let me know how that goes once you try out some flat brushes. So what I'll usually do is I'll open the palette and I'll bring in whatever color I want. So let's say I want red, I'll bring the red and I'll just overpower whatever is here. So I'll use enough of the red so that it becomes the dominant paint. Everything that was once there gets absorbed into that red. So I'm actually still painting like any other person would, but my starting point is adding it to the already dirty palette. Now, a lot of paintings where I'm looking for more of a nuanced color, more of a nuanced palette, it's very beneficial to have some dirt, quote unquote, on the palette, because then, let's say I want a not too bright of a blue. So I know that if I add some blue to here, it will immediately get neutralized by the red. So I saved essentially adding red. right? Or I saved adding other colors. And it doesn't even matter that much what's here as long as it's different from the blue. So if I add a blue to where there's yellow, I'll get a bit of a green, I'll add red. And so I neutralized it to become a muted blue kind of a color or a cool kind of a color, right? Especially if you think in terms of cool and warm, and your painting is mostly gray with nuances of cool and warm. A good example of this is the statue I painted. Let me see the sculpture. I don't think I have it accessible here, but it was mostly gray with hints of blue and hints of orange or sienna. Um, any painting that relies on that, this is a great way to go, because essentially you have a gray that's ready made. What happens is if you just bring in water and start mixing the what's here already, the leftovers, you'll get a gray, because average it's red and a bit of blue and green. You have everything here, so you'll get some kind of a gray, maybe brown, but brown is easy. You just add a bit more blue to it and it will turn gray, because brown is a gray that's more dominant towards the red and yellow. So all you have to do is add blue. So I'm not doing anything that is too clever when I'm using a dirty palette. I'm simply adding color to the dirt. If I want the color to be clean, I'll add a lot of it until it looks clean. And if I don't mind it looking super clean, I'll add a bit of it, and then I get a muted version of that. I hope that makes sense, right? So yeah, I think we'll wrap it up for today. My voice is a little tired, and I actually have a lot of work more to get done today. So if you have any kind of final questions, feel free to ask. But I think we'll aim towards wrapping it up soon. But the main point I wanted to share with you is it's that. Let me conclude for a second. So the difference between this and this, it's not in skill. It's not, and I know you may like both. That's fine. I'm talking very subjectively from the point of a person who much prefers this one over this one. My skill hasn't changed. I haven't improved in that day. I think I painted before this one. I painted ones that were worse in my opinion. It's all very subjective. But if you paint something that is significantly better than your other works, first off, that's a hint towards what you love. The way it turned out points you in the right direction of that's the thing you enjoy. So for me here, I enjoy this variety of colors. I enjoy matching the colors somewhat accurately, and I enjoy a lot of the loose edges. So that's an indicator. Notice that thing over there. That's something you love. Now, the second thing to understand is you probably haven't really improved unless we're talking about significant time differences, like after a year or two you paint something amazing, you're probably improving, right, generally speaking, but you didn't necessarily improve from the day before where you painted something you didn't like, or the next day where you again painted something you don't like as much. It's more the way I feel it in the immersion in the process, and in almost getting yourself, in the literal sense, yourself out of the way and allowing the art to just happen. It's the path of least resistance. I think my email should be out soon talking about that same topic. It literally is the path of least resistance. It's amazing how the easiest thing is to make a masterpiece. Everything else is just things obscuring and blocking it and standing in the way. Once you remove all of that, you're left with the truth, which is you already have what it takes. If you master the technique once, if you manage to do something once, you probably have that technique down somewhere. And it's other things that just block you flat out from doing that technique. So something to marinate on. I don't say it's a specific solution. Maybe some of you won't find it helpful. If you don't find that this speaks to you at all, that's perfectly fine. Find the solution that works for you. But I think some people may be able to relate. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you so much, April. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the kind words. Thank you so much. Thank you, John, once again for the support, for the birthday gift. Couldn't be more grateful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chris, for being here. Thank you, Adria. Thank you, Leah. Thank you, everyone. We'll wrap it up for today. There will be a cool video on Saturday. For those of you who want to let go and paint a little looser, I think it will be a great way to achieve that looseness. I think you'll find it helpful. I really do. trying to put out more videos that I find a topic that inspires me, and I immediately film a video and prepare it. So yeah. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you. Thank you. I really enjoy that kind of a thing. I enjoy this kind of communication. So I really do appreciate it. Thank you, Tembo Artwork, as well. I will talk to you again real soon. Until the next time. Take care and keep creating. Keep painting.